It did.
Okay, there you go, Barry.
Screen.
Oh,
Mhm.
I beg your pardon. I'm sharing screen for Barry. That's- Hang on just a sec. I'm hoping you can see that all right.
We can.
Good, we're good?
We're good.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So yet again tonight, we're titled an empowerment model because that's what we do. And we're going to talk more about how that fits in here. But this part is about your Habitat Advisor toolkit. So the toolkit is on the website and it's got resources for you before your visit, during your visit, after your visit. We're not going to send you out there alone or without knowing what you're doing because we have plenty of things that you can lean on. Before you ever go out, your clients have scheduled a visit. We've sent them handouts and video links to prepare them ahead of time so that they won't be either in the dark. They'll know what we're doing. And that is one good way to start a visit, particularly perhaps before you even get started on the visit proper to say, were you able to watch the video? Were you able to look at the documents? Do you have any questions about those? The first visit that you go out, first time we're trying it, we think it's going to work well. We're calling a shadow visit. We're taking the pressure off of you. You don't have to present anything. You just have to go along with experienced volunteers and observe. That doesn't mean you have to shut up, but ask for permission before you, or get in, or perhaps a Habitat Advisor will invite you to contribute, but don't feel that you have to. The principal thing is just to watch, see how a visit goes, and then get a feel for it so that when you do your own visits, you'll be better prepared. And there's a note there that says sign up starts tomorrow, and Kathy will talk more about that at the end of the session. So you're going to go out on a shadow visit the first time, but every time you go out, you're going to have a partner. We don't send anybody out alone for safety reasons and for reasons that two heads are better than one. You have different information, different background, different experience than your partner's going to have. And we feel the client just gets a much, much better visit when two people are contributing rather than one. Mm-hmm. You also have the report template, and we're going to talk a lot more about the report template as a way to submit reports, but it's also chock full of information for you before you ever go out. You can look over if you haven't already done so, and we hope you have, and hope we'll go back to it regularly. But there's information there on all sorts of topics which are going to be useful for you and prepare you to go on visits. I'll talk more about that in a minute. So when we sign our clients up, they cannot complete a booking. They cannot get on the calendar until they've answered a few questions. So the questions are about their level of experience, about the condition of their outdoor space, about any plans or goals that they have in mind, what else they think might be useful. All that information you're going to have when you look at the calendar and see who your client is, and they've answered those questions already. So you'll know a little something about them at least and not go in cold. So the kinds of questions, the kinds of information that's on the template breaks down pretty much into specific client questions and general ones, questions that come up all the time. So for in this example, if someone tells you in the information they put into their calendar, we want to create, you have an opportunity to look up about ponds. You're not going to become a pond expert in the 3 days you have before your visit. But if you look on that template, you'll see that there's a section on creating ponds. There's a couple of links. And basically, it'd be a good idea to review it yourself beforehand. And pretty much what you're going to say to your client on your visit is, I'm going to send you a link or two after the visit, and you'll know that it's there. Oops, what did I do? Thank you. And then the kind of question that comes up with frequency, like we've already discussed, cats. It's important that we bring to the attention of homeowners how many birds are killed by cats every year. But a safe way to approach that is to say, well, this is important, and I'm going to send you some more information about it. And once again, you go to the report template and you provide them with links. And now I'll turn it over to Kathy and Delaney to talk about scheduling, because they've done a good deal of work on this.
Okay, whoops. I beg your pardon. So I'm gonna turn it over to Delaney in just a second. We have this online scheduling system, which she has devised and executed and mentored me in carrying it forward. And it's a huge step, because Barry used to do this all in his head. And now we have this online system, which is easier for everybody. It's only the second time that we're using it. We got it in place in the fall for all the visits. So we're pretty excited about it. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to make Delaney a co-host so that she can share her screen, and she's just going to give us a sense of what this sign up is like. We have been so lucky to have Delaney. She's just amazing.
Alrighty, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. I will. Okay, so thank you for that introduction, Kathy. Essentially, everyone will be sent this link, or a scheduling sign up link, that will take you to a page that looks just like this. This is the link that we created for it, or Kathy created it all by herself, and this is the page that it will take you to straight away. Basically, we just ask that you select a time that works best for you, that you are certain that will not get messed up by anything else. But if there is a confliction that comes up later on, I'll show you guys how to make changes or cancel or whatnot. So click on the link, it takes you to this page, and then if Thursday, March 28th works for you, you can click that book button, and it gives you a handful of times. These are 1 hour time slots, but of course you want to allot time to get there and then chat with the other Habitat advisors afterwards, potentially, and then go home. So it's not just like a 1 hour commitment during the day. So if 10 a.m. works for you, then you can select 10 a.m. and it will ask if you want to add another time. This is just an automatic setting, so don't let it confuse you. You can just click select and continue. And then this is a short, like information input spot. So you can just go ahead and fill out all of this information about yourself. This will just be for other Habitat advisors to see your name on the schedule when it comes up. So it's not going to be sent to anybody or shared on the website or anything like that. So you don't have to worry about that. And then put in all this information. And then once you hit create appointment, then you will get an email. And this is, if you're into Google Calendar and understand how to use all of that, then there is an option to add it to your own Google Calendar and do all of that. Or if you create the appointment and realize once you're actually looking at all the details right here, it doesn't actually work for you, you can go ahead and reschedule or cancel it or do anything like that. And so then at this point, you've created your appointment, and the phrase creating the appointment may be a little bit confusing because this is just your time slot. So you haven't necessarily signed yourself up to work with anybody else yet. It's kind of just letting us know that this is a time that works for you. You won't necessarily 100% get that time slot and work with somebody at that time. It's just kind of letting us know that that is an option for you. So then you can go into your email and you'll get this this confirmation email. And if you realize that you want to change something about it or cancel it, and it's a couple days later and you don't have this screen pulled up anymore, this screen pulled up anymore, you can refer back to this email and change or cancel your appointment, or do anything like that. And when you select that, it just brings you back to that original screen that we were looking at earlier, and you can reschedule or cancel or anything like that. And it is pretty self-explanatory, but it pretty much just brings you back to similar screens. And yeah, so more times, or if you're just wanting to change it by, you know, a different time of that day, it's totally up to you, or you can fully go ahead and cancel it. And canceling this will take you off the option for someone to take your time slot. So if you realize you have something going on at that point during the day, then canceling it is the best option, and then it opens it back up for someone else. So yeah, I think that this page should be pretty self-explanatory, but if you do get confused, feel free to refer back to this recording of the video and skip to this time point, and then you can go through it while you're making your appointments if you guys feel like you need a little help while you're just going through it. So yeah.
Delaney, can you really quickly show them the calendar?
Yeah. So this calendar?
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, this is what it would look like when everyone is, these are, yep, people, actual appointments that have been made with 2 Habitat advisors. So there's a variety of steps that we take with and without Habitat advisors in the back side, and with everyone else working on it to get the calendar to look like this. We have the Habitat advisors sign up for these time slots or appointments, which is what we just showed you guys. And then once we have everyone signed up, then your guys' names, the Habitat advisors' names, will show up on this calendar. And then we kind of do a little puzzle put together of who's going to go with who and what times are going to work with everybody. And then we create new appointments for homeowners using those times. And then we do another puzzle put together, and then it ends up like this. So yeah, essentially we have kind of connected Squarespace with Google Calendar. So then we have the opportunity to look at these. And when you click on one of these appointments, you can see that this is the homeowner working with Maureen and Barry. And then similar to the little questionnaire thing that you saw me fill out with my name and my email and my phone number, we have a little bit more of an extensive one for the homeowners. And it's just asking them about their experience with their outdoor space and their plans and their goals with it, and just a couple things like that, just so the Habitat advisors, you guys, can be slightly familiar with the homeowner and their situation before you get there, and you can prepare for that like that. So we do have this, I believe this is in the Habitat advisor toolkit.
And those are the questions that Barry mentioned that we asked.
Yes.
So you can just go to this calendar and click here and then see their answers.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And so, yeah, no problem. So this is just takes you right to that. And we do like advise that before the or until it's all put together, it can get a little bit confusing looking at everyone's different names and the homeowners' names. So I mean, your guys are welcome to go take a look at it whenever, but just don't get overwhelmed if it's not totally put together yet, because the puzzle is certainly confusing until it's all put together. So, but yeah, in the end, this is what it looks like. So hopefully that was helpful.
Very helpful.
Kathy, can I add one quick thing?
Sure can.
In the beginning, guys, when you fill out that you select your appointment the way Delaney showed you, your name will actually populate right to that calendar that before the calendar Delaney showed you is after it's already been all paired up and homeowners have selected appointments. Prior to that, the calendar will show just Habitat advisors. So a really good thing, because we do go out in pairs, is to look at the calendar and the appointments sort of side by side. And then you can see where there are single people. And if you can sign up at the same slot as somebody who's still on the calendar by themselves, you'll make the pair. And then we have a complete pair to go out. Or if you're early in the sign up period, you put your name down first. Other Habitat advisors will come in and they'll look at their own calendars next to where there are names and know to try to make pairs. So that's a piece that sort of happens first on that. The calendar and the sign up slots that Delaney just showed you are actually connected, and you can see your name populate right away. The other piece about it that we ask is, Delaney showed you how to take your name off the calendar if you made a mistake and you can't go out on that day. That's fine to do as long as you're a single. Look at the calendar, please. And if somebody's already doubled up with you, or if it gets to the stage where a homeowner has already been assigned, please let Kathy or Barry know in particular if you need to take your name off, because we need to find a substitute then to complete that pair. So you have some flexibility as long as you're only on the calendar by yourself. Once you're paired up, we need to know about it so that we can pair that person with somebody else. Okay?
Thanks, Susanna. And we think you'll find the calendar very easy, brilliantly easy, thanks to the way Delaney has set it up. But of course, if there are questions, please do let us know. So I talked about the resources you have, the toolkit items. Before you go out on a visit, there are things that you can carry with you and use during your visit. You're going to get a clipboard. It's going to have a lovely Bluebird PGAS logo on it. It's going to have laminated pages with these graphics, thanks to Susanna and her wonderful laminating machine. You're going to get a badge, so you look very official. Those are all things that you can fall back on to make you feel more confident, more comfortable. It's a good idea for when you're paired up for one of you to decide before you start the visit. That can be 10 minutes before. Some people like to do it a day before, but mostly we do it just before we meet up with the homeowner. One of you take notes, the other one leads the discussion. And the person taking notes also starts out the report writing process. We've got other tools you can use, like your smartphone, very good apps, free of charge, iNaturalist and Seek. We would encourage you all to get those. They're free. Picture This has a cost. It's a good one as well, but you may well find that iNaturalist and Seek will serve you very well. Yeah, you can use it to look things up, to take photos of their property, to help you write your report. You can show them things on the phone on the spot. So those are during your visit and after your visit. That's where the report writing process comes in. So you may ask, why a follow-up report? And how do I do a report? We're going to go into that. I'm going to touch on these things. Claire is going to go into more depth because she's the one who's been working on this arrangement. So just to say quickly that the reason for a report is to get the homeowner to feel excited, to prepare them, to support them. Without something written down for them to look at, by the time you're out the driveway, they've already forgotten what you said. They don't feel supported as they do when they get something a week later that goes over their visit and they say, oh yeah, this is what we talked about. This is what I said was my priority, that sort of thing. Anthony's hand is up. Should we hold that?
Anthony, can you hang on until Barry gets to the end, or
Burning question?
his hand went?
I could wait.
Okay, thanks.
Well,
Don't forget it.
don't forget. So why a follow-up report? Well, for us as administrators, we need a record of the visit. We keep an archive of every visit that takes place. And we need to be sure that we have the contact information for the client and a reminder of who it was that visited them. For the client's purposes, the document includes the plan that you've put together, the priorities. It includes information on so that they can achieve the guidelines that you've talked about in your conversation. You'll be giving them resources, referrals, links in this report, again, that you've referred to in the course of your visit. You said, I'll be getting back to you with this. I don't have an answer right off the bat. Or it would be better if you looked at a good, reliable resource. So you'll get that in your report. And then invariably you find you leave a property and you say, oh, I meant to talk about that. Or we touched on this, but there's a lot more that I can tell them. Those are the important things that you didn't discuss that you can put in your report. So you've got a template, and there's no need to be afraid of a blank page. We used to do this just starting with a blank page, and it terrified all our habitat advisors. I procrastinated forever about doing this. There's no need for that anymore because so much of the material is already developed and you just plug it in. So there are basically about 5 parts to the report. I'll touch on them quickly. The first is your opening remarks, setting the tone for the report. Pleasure to meet you, and add your own elaborations on some personal things so that they know that you were paying attention and you're not just doing boilerplate. Here are some examples of the kinds of personal things. Of course, you'll pick your own, but anything positive is good to put in this space. You're doing a great job. You've started planting. You've managed to get rid of bamboo. You've taught yourself a lot already. Even if they've done nothing, you could say something positive. They have scheduled a visit. They have shown interest. They want you there and they want to hear from you. You can point to that. The core of the visit, the core of the report are priorities. When you're in conversation, you're going to talk about priorities constantly. We hope that you don't leave without saying, this is your plan. This is your priority. That's the most important thing for them to take away, because it's so overwhelming when you have a whole yard and don't know where to start or you're stuck. So a plan looks like this. You elaborate. This is the part you put in your own words as much as possible, but you're picking on the things that you covered in the course of the visit. So we're going to start in the backyard. You've said your priority is to put in some shrubs and ground cover. We've talked about invasive plants and getting those removed in this first season. Priority for the second season, more lawn to smother. Focusing on continuous bloom, for example. The first year you might just put in some plants, then you want to see when they bloom and make sure that you have continuous bloom, that kind of thing. There's a note here that says, see full sun, and I'll talk about the plant list in another moment. So priorities for later. So you're encouraging them to look at this season, start planning for the next season. You might smother the lawn this spring in order to plant in the fall, and then be thinking a year ahead, maybe even 5 and 10 years ahead. This does not happen overnight. Another next section is planting principles and planting recommendations. Okay, so the planting principles are paragraphs that are in every report. You don't have to touch these. Just be sure to include them. Just be sure not to delete them because they're already in place. And you can elaborate on the principles. If they remind you, oh yes, I meant to say more about continuous bloom, you can put that into the priority section. Likewise, if you want to give them planting recommendations, you'll find that in the template, and you can move it from one section into the next. The next section in there is client-specific information. There's a long list of possible client-specific information in the template, and you'll see these yellow sections. That means remove this wording right here, as well as any things that are not relevant. Did I just lose everything? Well, I don't know how I got there. Terribly sorry. Ha! All right. Now
You clicked on a link.
I clicked on a link. That's how we got there. Look how lovely that link was.
We're all here. We're all here.
I'm so glad. So lastly, uh, um, we want you to not, after your visit, go to procrastination. Do not end up home on the range of excuses. Write your report within 3 days of visiting. Share it. There's a share link on the report form with your partner, and we ask the partner to return it in 3 days' time as well, so that you can turn it around and the client within a week's time of the visit has the report in hand. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna hit on this last part, which is still about the report form, but also generally about communicating with each other. What we're trying to do, we really need your help with the links that are in the report, the plant links, the plant lists that are in the report template, and all of those referrals. We're sort of trying to look at it as a kind of crowdsourcing, although we're a pretty small crowd. The idea is that if you find a resource that you'd really love to include in the report, rather than burying it in that report, you share it with us. So the goal, why we have this report template, aside from the fact that it's going to make life easier for you, and I shouldn't say for you because we do visits as well, so it makes it easier for all of us, is that we really want to have some consistency in visits. We'd like to have everybody get the same excellent information. We don't want it buried in some report that you write. We'd like the consistency is about every homeowner getting the same great information. The current is about the information being current and also the links being current, because there's nothing worse than clicking on a link and it's a dead link. And boy, those links get dead fast. We want it to be concise, that idea that you don't want to do information overload to your client's head. We want to really carefully select and not give them too many options. And we want it to be credible. We want it to come from trusted sources. So we're going to ask you to only use the resource links we've provided. You might say, what if I really find a great link that I want to include in my report? And we'll say, okay, that's great. Let us know about additional links that you recommend. And assuming they seem to be necessary, we'll put them in there. Again, we don't want too many things. So if they duplicate something, we won't. Please rely on the plant list we provided. Okay. Oops, that was out of order. So what if I have a favorite native that's not on the Habitat 100? I hope you've looked at the Habitat 100. We are now calling it the Habitat 100 Plus. And we invite you to let Barry know if there's a species that, for whatever reason, you think really needs to be added to the list. Again, we need your help. If you know a nursery or an online source that you love that's not in this list, we need to know about it so we can add it. And there are lots and lots of questions that come from homeowners about landscapers, and it's not so easy to find people who understand what we're doing and who will aid homeowners in doing that. So we really need you to be the eyes and ears of the program. So in conclusion, you've got all this stuff. We've really tried to set you up with a lot of support. And I'm going to now stop sharing my screen.
And is it time to take questions? Tony's questions?
Hang on a minute.
Anything in the chat?
Susanna, is there anything in the chat?
I didn't see anything in the chat. I think we're good chat-wise.
Okay. Tony, would you like to go ahead and ask your question? And meantime, I'm going to make Claire co-host.
Oh,
Oh,
Sure.
thank you. I think I have two questions in that statement. One was just a signal boost like Douglas's question about PG County being so huge. Like, are we broken up in areas, or do we just take, is it first come, first serve as far as our schedule is concerned? So,
It's a good question, Anthony, and Suzanne is going to talk a little bit about that later because we are really trying to move towards a more community-based model. And move into areas where we don't really have a presence or a strong presence as yet. Right now, we're a little bit everywhere.
Okay, thank you. The other thing is like do we have the password yet to the information? Because it's password protected.
Oh yeah,
So,
yes, it's
Capital.
it's PGAS, all capital letters, 1, 2, 3. If you missed that, I'm sorry.
and I've done this is just a comment, site visits before, and sometimes there's a big mess. So I always say, "Oh, you have great sun here." So that's what I say when I can't think of anything else to say.
That's like somebody in my family used to look at babies, and if she didn't like the way the baby looked, she'd say, "Now there's a baby in the nicest town." Really
Okay,
nice sun here.
And
I
just,
would like
Thank
to
you. That's great. Thanks.
sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. I'd like to introduce Claire Valdivia, who is a master naturalist who started with us in the fall and has been kind enough to devote some of her master naturalist hours above and beyond visits to working on taking the report from that we had and making it much, much more user-friendly. And she's going to share her screen and kind of walk you through it and take questions along the way.
Great. Hey everyone, I'm Claire. Great to see all of you. And I'm just gonna walk through a quick how-to. But do want to note as well that if you don't catch every little step, that's okay because everything is documented. Kathy's put a great summary together of the on the Habitat Advisors webpage that links to a detailed how-to document of everything that I'm going to talk through now. But just want to show you a little bit of a live demo of what this will look like. So get my tabs up here. So when you click on the report template link from the how-to, you'll be brought to a document that shows the template of the report. I think some of you have already played around with this and looked at it, which is great. So happy to, feel free to raise hands for questions. I'll do a quick run through first. As you'll see, you don't have edit access to this document, and that's intentional. This is the template that everybody's going to use. So you do need to create a copy as your first step to create your own report. So to do that, you go to File and Make a Copy. And then we ask that you put in the last name of the person, of the client, of the site visit. So it wouldn't be me, but if it was, be something like this, and the date that you visited them. So 3/25/2024. And then all you do is click the button, Make a Copy. And now you'll see you have a new document created and you have edit access to it. And this is where you go in and you start to write your report. You'll see some of the text is very similar to the slides that Barry just showed. So this is the intro at the top where you'll fill in, replace the yellow sections with your own text to adjust it. Adding client information here. There's some standard language, but also a number of sections that you will be putting in your own content to. So everything highlighted in yellow, you should just take out. It's just to kind of highlight that you should be doing something. It's a little indicator. And this is, as I think y'all have been training on breaking out priorities for each season. This is where you'll write in your prioritized plan. One of the things I want to note about the report that is you'll see in a few different sections, starting with planting recommendations, is that what we try to do is make sure that all the links from various resources that are approved by the program are already in here for you. and pulled out things like from the Habitat 100 plus that are good to have in the report, such as the plant names. And it's organized here by soil moisture and sun type already, so you don't have to copy it out of Habitat 100. But what you'll see is that there's collapsible headers. To uncollapse them, you just click this little arrow, and then you can see the content. The reason why we did this is that the report has a ton of content in it. You're not going to end up using all of it, but it can help to just make it a little bit more easy to skim through it and add and remove the sections that you do or don't want to use. So if you have a client who has these first two types of soil and sun, you might keep those. To remove a section, say they don't have a moist and full sun area, what you have to do is you have to uncollapse it and then select everything and remove it. One thing I want to note that's just a little might be a little confusing at first is if you just deleted the header, you would see the content underneath it get uncollapsed. So just keep in mind, you can always go back if something confusing happens, unselect it again, or collapse it again. But the general rule of thumb is you expand it first, and then you delete the whole section. So that's the first section where that is relevant. You can also collapse these sections here. A lot of times, these might be relevant to all these sections could be relevant to your the where to get plants to the person that you are visiting, although you might want to adjust some of the lists to remove some that maybe aren't close to them or they said they weren't interested in or something like that. And what I'll recommend too is if you remember, make sure to kind of collapse the list before you send it, just so the directions are here for the client as well to be opening them too, so they can navigate the report easily. The last section here is the longest, and you'll see a lot of collapsible sections here. We really, this is kind of the biggest reason we wanted to use these collapsible headers is because this was a really long section. There's a lot of content in it. So what we recommend again is that you take a look and remove things that aren't applicable to your client, but that we recommend that you have, likely 2 to 5 sections that you might keep based on what comes up. So again, you can kind of skim through, you can open and remove it as applicable, and then keep the sections that are relevant to what you've discussed with your client during the visit. I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions, and then I can talk about next steps for sharing the report.
Claire, I'm wondering if you could just explain, I know that if you, to remove the yellow parts, if you don't remove the highlighter, if you don't click on the highlighter at the top, you'll end up still having the yellow, you know what I mean?
I think you just delete it. I think that usually works.
Okay.
Yeah, I think all you have to do for that is just highlight the whole section and delete it. I do think if you,
right, because it's gone at the top now.
Yeah, perhaps if you were writing in it, you would have to unhighlight it. But if you're, maybe that was if like in this top section, if you're just adding it in here.
Yeah.
My personal note.
Yeah, that's the problem. It was that one.
Yeah, just remember to select it and then go up to the highlight color and select none.
Thanks. Does anybody have any questions at this point? You want to, I guess, keep going, Claire.
All right. Really, there's just a couple things left. When you are ready to send this to your partner, if you want to get the link to send it to them, you go ahead and click share. and click copy. The nice thing about the new structure is you don't need to share it with anybody else. As you can see, the group of Habitat advisors already has access. So everybody else who's a Habitat advisor will have edit access to the document as well. And everybody who's not a Habitat advisor can view the report. So once you share this, it'll be the same link that you share with your client once you're ready to send it to them, and they'll have view-only access to it. So you never need to mess anything with the permissions here. All you got to do is copy link, and you're ready to go. The last thing I'll note is if you had started working on your report and then you're coming back to it and you're looking in your Google Drive and you don't know where you put it, what you can do is remember that on the PG Advisors website and on the how-to document, there's a link to view all reports. This is going to bring you to a folder that will have all the reports in it, including the one you made. So you can just look through of what your client's name was and the date and go ahead and open it up. And there it is. So hoping that this is a way that helps keep it organized without you having to move things around to different folders. All you have to do again is what you every single time, just start from the template, create it, and it'll stick it in the correct folder and apply the right permissions, and then you should be good to go.
Thanks, Claire. And does anybody want to ask anything at this point before we move on? Not that this is your last chance.
I think I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So the sharing with our partner, I think what I'm understanding is the second that we start typing our own, saved version of the template, that everyone in the community we're in right now, all of our PGAS folks can see the reports. So what we would be doing with the partner is saying, this is ready for you to review. Is that true? In other words, we don't have to.
You would send them the link. Yeah, you could say, go check out the folder and find the report for for Barry, who we visited last week. You could say that. It's just sometimes in an email, you might want to link them to it. So that would just be
okay. Thank you. That helps me. Yeah, glad to do that.
The other part I'll just chime in about that is that you may have, you might be having a conversation back and forth with your partner a little bit about, how do you want to handle this part, or do you remember what we said about that? And that's easier in an email back and forth. So if you copy the link and put it in the email, then you're just in conversation with each other at that level.
Perfect. Thank you.
That happens.
Anything else? We are so pleased to have this new template. So we're happy to have you pioneer it. Thanks.
There's a question in the chat about whether sample files should be deleted from the visit report folder. Kathy, do you have an opinion?
I'll take care of that. I'll clean up before we actually start regular visits. But if you haven't done that yet and you want to do a practice, go ahead and do it. And I'll just make sure that it's cleaned up before we're actually starting visits. Claire, you should know that there were a couple of comments, a couple before you came, and at least one in the chat about how terrific the template is. So that's great, right?
Awesome. Well, always love feedback for improving it in the future. So hope all your visits go well.
Okay.
Let me just point out, Jody's asking that it sounds like it would be good not to delete sections until our partner has seen our version. Maybe just indicate what we think we delete. And that goes back to, I like to sort of do the link and share it back and forth with my partner, and then you're in a conversation on the side about that. Sometimes it'll be clearer and sometimes it won't.
And you'll figure out a rhythm.
Yeah. And John has his hand up.
John, go ahead.
Yes, this is not really about the template, but it was a question about, you know, within the first couple of sessions, training sessions we had where they, where our the national person had really done a great job of showing some of the, like, you know, design template stuff where you could show like, oh, you know, plants are planted on a 9-inch or 12-inch center, and there's like, you know, the ground covers and the massing and all that kind of stuff. Is there, I didn't see any sort of a link in the template for something like that, like for the clients to look at, but maybe it's just too much information. Are you kind of, is the idea that they should, if they're interested in that, they could go to one of these resources like the Planting in a Post, you know,
Yeah,
Post Wild World or whatever like that? Is that what you're thinking?
I think we haven't found the perfect software for it. And so we haven't provided it. We're gonna, for people who are, maybe I won't even get into that. We've toyed with using templates also during the visit, because that's kind of that's another way to take notes during a visit. And we'll kind of keep you posted about that. I think it's a really good question, John. And I think it's maybe a next step to work on. We definitely encourage people to sketch if they want. And there are people who are very savvy who go on and find a program and present us with a design in that kind of way. And you can always say, you can show me that, email it to us afterwards, and we'll take a look at it and see what we think. So that's a way to keep the conversation going. But the other is a work in progress. We're a little bit behind where we hoped we'd be. I want to honor this homework assignment that we gave you. We were hoping we'd have a whole 20 minutes to talk about it. But I'd like to at least take a bit of time, and maybe if people want to stay at the end, we could talk more. So these are the questions I'd like you to think about. You've done, I hope, at least gotten out into your garden, thought about your first priority. If you were coming off of that visit, where would you start? What challenges did you identify? Did you see anything differently in our case because of the training? And what, if you put yourself in the shoes of someone who's being visited, what might make you nervous? I'm going to get rid of these questions because I'd like you to be able to see each other, but I'll prompt you with them. So, yeah. How about the first question? Does anybody want to talk about? Yeah, you can put things in the chat, certainly, and then we can come back to them. But if you raise hands, if you're ready to talk really about any of those, maybe we start with what's your priority, but if you want to jump in about something you saw differently because of the training, or a challenge, or something that might make you nervous if you were being visited. Anybody want to hop in there? Looks like we're losing Anthony for a bit.
Okay.
I see him.
That was Doug.
He's got to go. Oh, it was Doug. I thought it was Anthony.
Still here. Hi, Ian.
Oh, hi, Anthony. Okay, so two people have their hands raised, and they are Lisa and Kaylin. Lisa, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. So interestingly, I discovered my priorities are the same things that are going to make me feel nervous. So, I can solve for both. My nervousness would come from my yard looking really messy and unkempt and kind of thin, because even though I've been planting for years, I've been broke for years. So I've never done anything at like grand scale. And especially because I set myself up as an example, I get nervous actually showing people my yard. And the training really helped me. I still haven't necessarily identified the budget solution, but I really, really know now that I need to stop buying 3 of each plant, 3 plants at a time, but like really go for it and get like a whole flat of plants and build on my strengths. So treating myself as the client, I said, hey, I noticed these plants that are thriving in your yard, get more of all of them. And then as they start to spill over the beds, transplant them other places. You've done a great job of choosing plants, right? So that gave me a shot of confidence. And then the secondary priority is just a little bit more attention to those cues of care, because my beds are kind of, go ahead and buy another pallet of stone this year and build up the beds a little bit more. So I wound up my priorities to be the layering and massing, like really committing to that. I found a way to tell myself how to do that wasn't like shamey. So that was cool.
Which is a really, really good, a good set of phrases and attitudes to take to people you visit. Anybody else want to hop in here?
Kaylin was next.
Oh, Kaylin, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kaylin.
No, that's okay. So I was looking at my house back home, and I noticed because we live on a corner lot, we've got a lot of just like straight turf grass, and a lot of it is just empty land. So I feel like the first thing that we would have to do is start smothering that grass so we can make room for the plantings. And that was like a definite first step that I wanted to prioritize for this season and this summer while I'm trying to turn over that garden.
And your parents think that's a good idea, I hope.
Yes, I sat them down and I kind of gave them a mini presentation version of this just to kind of talk to them about why this was important, and they appreciate my passion, so they're letting me take the lead on this.
That's great. Someone else want to hop in on any one of those questions?
Bonnie has her hand up.
Bonnie?
Here, let me take the lower hand thing. It obviously, like most longtime gardeners, I always am thinking about the garden, the yard, the needs, the priorities. But something that Barry said in a class a week or two ago, he talked about the plant Caryopteris and how it's actually a host plant for nothing. And of course, it's one of these late season bloomers that look pretty in August. And you're like, oh no, you're picking on that. Okay. So, but I actually had 3 of them in the front yard. And it was like a little jigsaw puzzle, because I pulled those out and I said, and I actually noticed that they've started to spread. So they are not really benign. So they got into the yard waste bags, and I'm sort of a plant collector. I have an odd yard, very sunny in the front, huge sledding hill in the back that we've converted to gardens that backs up to woods, no fencing, lots of deer pressure. And I've bought little adorable plants here and there because I want everything. And yet there have been some that haven't done well there either because of deer pressure or maybe too much shade under a maple tree. So because of this, I was able to bring up these 2 straight species, Ilex glabra, put them up front, bring up an Itea virginica that has, if I don't fence it, it just gets nibbled on. And I brought up a little New Jersey tea, same thing. So they're now, our front yard gets less deer pressure. And I'm just like in love with my yard again. And none of these exact changes were something that I was going to do. I was going to focus on the big things, to get rid of some more crepe myrtle, finally get rid of the chameleon plant. Finally, I was focused on some bigger things. And these smaller shifting is just gave me spring fever, and I've just enjoyed it. And I realized that even visiting my own yard with a little feedback, it's just, I'm just so happy. And people are saying nice things because I've had a chance to weed while I'm doing these things and pull out the hairy bitter cress and all the things we really don't want. So I can really see that, I was ready to quit the program and say, I don't want to tell anybody what to do. My yard looks horrible. I can't even imagine telling anybody what they might want to do. And now I'm really seeing that that this could be fun, and you can, give people ideas, make some comments, just to, get some change going on. So I'm excited about it again.
Thank you so much. That's great to hear. Yeah, the point is to indeed to fall in love, to share your passion, share plants that really work well for you, be in conversation with people, no shaming, no native plant police coming to your door. I think you've got the idea, and that's great to hear.
So thank you. Okay.
Well, and I'll just also add that that your last comment was great because you're exactly right. We really tried not to tell people what to do, and we really do go and sort of say, how can we help you? And here's what we've struggled with, and we're in this side by side. And none of us are really experts. None of us are, landscape architects. We're not hired. We're here as a support system. So your words were actually exactly right.
In fact, our gardens, our imperfect gardens are probably the best place for people to go and observe because they're not perfect and nobody's garden is going to be perfect. So they'll learn more from that. I hate to stop this conversation. I wish that we had longer, and I'd love to invite any of you who want to stay towards the end. But I'm going to turn it over to Susanna because we have a lot more to tell you.
All right. So Kathy's going to share her screen, and I'm going to give her a little thumbs up when we're moving on to the next slide.
No, that's not what you want to see.
Almost. It was right. It was just in the middle. It was the right deck.
No, it wasn't the right deck, was it?
Yeah.
No, it was
Oh.
the wrong deck.
We're
Okay.
not seeing it here.
It looked good to me.
Hang on. Whoop, I'm so sorry. Just a minute. I'm getting it. Ugh.
Just, watch your language because we are recording.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to try this again. Okay.
Yeah. There we go. All right. So you guys have had almost four full sessions on backyards and front yards and home visits. And I'm going to take us beyond visits a little bit because in addition to the home visits, which are really the core of everything we do, we also have expanded the program. And you will hear throughout this part of the presentation, you'll hear the same principles and the same ideas that you've been hearing all along, but we're expanding them to more of a community environment. So next slide, Kath.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to pay attention.
So the first big expansion we did, we started pretty early on in 2021. I wrote a grant to the Chesapeake Bay Trust, and we had approached Joe's Movement Emporium right on Bunker Hill Road in downtown Mount Rainier. We had a pretty good idea that Brooke and the team at Joe's would be very amenable to having their front beds, 4 big front beds that were socked in with Liriope and a bunch of non-natives. And we had a pretty good feeling that they would be interested in letting us come in and work with them to put in a native garden, and they were extremely receptive. So we wrote a grant and got some seed money from CBT to start their first community-based public wildlife garden. And we wanted to do this for the wildlife, first and foremost. It's a bigger space than we have in most yards, so an amazing array of plants in there. But we also really wanted to bring the community into this effort and to accelerate our ability to reach more people with this message than we can keep up with home visits. So Joe's was a perfect site for it. It's in a very public space. It's very accessible. And the other intention that we had right from the beginning was to really devise a model for how to do a community-based wildlife garden, because we hadn't seen anything that was replicable in a fairly concise way. So We came up with an acronym, and it's PRISM. And you'll note that the word plant does not get a letter in this acronym, and that's very much on purpose. Most people think they're going to go plant a garden, and that's the only verb they use. And they go out and they put the plants in, and then, you know, typically after some period of time, they get bored and moved on to the next project, and the garden gets forgotten. We've talked about cues to care and all of these other issues throughout this training. In a public garden, this is more important than ever. So we'll go to our P, which is the first letter, and it's plan. It's really important that community gardens are carefully planned. Again, all of these things apply to a home garden. They're just magnified in a community space. And the main thing I think to take away when you're thinking about planning a community garden is to never lose track of the community. We're not only planning for plants and wildlife now. We're planning for access for people to be able to come in on their own comfortably and learn and understand. There are other elements here that you can see spelled out. The plan can be more or less complicated. It's going to depend on the site and the people that you're working with. But you really want to make sure that you're thinking carefully about how you're going to go forward. Okay. Next. Two things that we've noticed get missed when people are planning to do a community garden are these. The first is buy-in from the host site. And this is back at the University of Maryland, and Kaylin's in there somewhere. But people, it's tempting to say that you want to approach a local business and ask the business owner, oh, you know, there's sort of an area next to the parking lot that's no man's land. Nobody pays any attention to it. Wouldn't it be nice if we came in and put a native garden in there? And the owner might say, sure, great, you know, go for it. That's not buy-in. You have to remember that you're temporary. You're not going to be there forever. That again, like we've talked about in the home visits, you're there to help get this going with somebody and give them the tools to eventually make it be their own and assume responsibility. So you need to have a more in-depth conversation about what it's going to entail, what you'll be needing from them, and start talking about maintenance early on and make sure that it's something that you don't have to be responsible for, or else it's going to fall apart. In the beginning, you'll have to do a lot of that, but you want to think long-term right from the start. And then very interesting, a lot of people forget to make sure they have access to a water source. Mm-hmm. And while we know native gardens thrive pretty well without watering, as they mature, in the beginning, you absolutely have to have a water source. Barry has successfully worked with municipalities to get them to allow him to tap into hydrants to use that water for a community garden. At Joe's, we had hose bibs. You just want to make sure you have water. And even though she's the cutest thing ever, you probably don't want to rely on child labor. Okay, next slide. So our R is for remove. And I think we've been over this enough. You know, you have to come in and get rid of all of the invasives and the non-natives and all of the plant life that's not going to help your garden thrive. But we also want everybody to think about at this level, you're again coming back to the community and the human use. You want to make sure that if there's, you know, some falling down bench or some other hazard or garbage, that you clean that all up and start thinking right from the start about removing things that make it hard for humans. That's fine, Kathy. No, that's perfect. I'm waving my hand. It looks like my thumb. At Joe's, there up in the top left, you can see our sea of Liriope that welcomed us. That was in all 4 beds. And then we had a bunch of Nandina and some other tough guys in there. We had 2 full volunteer days, removing as much as we possibly could. And then On the third day, because there were, you can see these red twig dogwoods on the right here. There were some big shrubs and some other things that were too much for us to handle. We actually transplanted the red twigs back to the back. We hired a local minority-owned company, Los Riveros. They're on your list of approved landscapers that we can recommend to other people. They're great, and they have a background in native plant gardening, so they totally understood what we were doing. They came in, we had some money for that. So again, back to the plan. They came in and helped us get the really big stuff that we could not do by hand. Okay. I is for install, and you will get to plant. This is a garden, you will get to plant, you get to install plants. But again, before you do that, we really want to emphasize this is community garden. You want to make sure that you are trying to keep as much water out of the storm drains as possible. You want to try to keep the water on your land. You want to pay attention to how things are draining. You might need to put in swales and berms. You might want a water barrel. And you can also add man-made features. Again, you might take out a falling down bench. You might bring in a nice bench. You might want to do a bat or a bird box, other things like that, even trash bins. Just again, make sure that there is a plan. If you bring it in, you have a plan to keep it clean and safe. If you bring a trash bin, make sure there's a plan to get that thing emptied. So think it through on all of these. All right, next. So we had 2 big planting days. The first one was with Joe's after school program, and that was just fantastic. And we got a lot of enthusiasm and smiles out of that day. And then we had an adult planting day, and we planted more than 1,000 plants in those beds at Joe's. Barry did a great design for us, and we planted really densely. And a benefit that you can see from that is that garden filled in and looks like a really mature garden just a couple of years later. It actually looked really full just a year later. All right. So now we're up to what are the 2 probably most overlooked elements of a community garden, and probably the 2 things that we think are the most important. And that's the S. We're at Prism, so we're at the S, and that's for signs. I think we would argue that you have to have at least 1 sign, and you have to plan for that in your budget. If you put in a community garden that doesn't have any signs, nobody will know what they're looking at. Nobody will understand what it is. And back to several of the different points that have been made throughout the training, a native garden is going to look a little different from what people are used to seeing maybe. And if you don't have a sign, people will either walk right by and not realize the power of what they're seeing, or they might not like what they see. So you need at least 1. Do think about languages. We have 4 big signs. You'll see a sample of them in a minute. You saw one on the welcome sign at Joe's. We made all of our big signs bilingual with Spanish. And this last point is something that's really important to me, and something that I didn't find people were thinking about really much at all, which is you need to be thinking about the entire community enjoying this garden. So signs need to be visible, easily visible. You can't let the plants grow over them. You have to think about people who might have low vision, so font matters, and people who might be in a wheelchair or have other mobility issues. If the sign is buried back in the plants, it's going to lose its power. We're really focusing on bringing the community in all of its elements to enjoy this garden, right? So something that we think we invented for Joe's, we decided that we really didn't want to just have plant labels that say Scarlet Bee Balm Monarda didyma, and then maybe have a picture of the plant when it's right in front of the plant. We wanted to show again, we're trying to use this space to convey all of the messaging that you guys have been getting in these long sessions in just a few signs about the power of native plants. And I like to think of native plants as the verbs of the garden. They bring all the action. And we wanted to show in all of our plant labels some active thing that the plant was doing for wildlife. And so we have 32 of these. They're all different. They all show different activities. Right? And then, as I mentioned, we have 4 large signs. Those are just 4x6, those little plant labels, but they actually are pretty big and the colors are very bold. And then we have these 4 large signs, and they try to encapsulate the main messages that we have been offering to you guys throughout this training. You'll recognize this. This is the structure graphic that you've already seen, and you'll get a handout with it. It's just so powerful. And we sort of translated that back, added some text to it, and then put it all in Spanish. That's one of 3. There's another sign that shows sort of the how to create a native garden, and it shows a native garden across the seasons. And the third content sign in a different bed shows specialization and pollination and has beautiful graphics to go with that. So you get the core messages behind all of this, right? And then this is our moral mantra. If you forget everything else, this is the most important of all. I think that we all feel as important as it is to have a private garden at a private household, well maintained, in order to send the message that native plants and native gardening is beautiful. In a public space, it's really essential. So we just want to make sure that this piece is built in from the beginning, that you're thinking about the first year, the long term, and always remembering that the garden itself is the messenger. So we want that message to be back to everybody who comes into contact with this garden. This is beautiful. What is this? How can I have this? I want one of these too. We don't ever want anybody to look at it and think, oh my God, they should just mow that thing down. So, all right. Next slide. So at Joe's, we had 2 really distinct maintenance plans. In the first year, we used like a meal train platform, and we had Habitat advisors sign up to rotate through every 2 weeks for the entire year and do weeding and pick up trash and make sure that everything was looking good. They were able to report back to us if anything, was out of line or there were any issues or anything like that. We thought that we would do watering that way, but it was too big a task. And there are hose bibs there, and we had hoses. We very quickly pivoted to soaker hoses and showed Joe's staff how to turn the hoses on and off and how long to run them, because we have really hot summers here, in case everybody doesn't know that. And those plants just needed water, a lot of water. At the same time that we were developing the garden, Brooke was working on sort of filling in her Greenworks team, and brought on this fabulous team of young people. And we've been working really closely with them. Barry did a training with them on more detailed maintenance for the long term in the garden. And they've now taken over the full maintenance of Joe's. Barry and the rest of us, but mostly Barry, still goes over and gives them pointers and does sort of like, some teaching sessions over there that are open to the public too. But these guys are have the primary responsibility for the garden going forward, and they're terrific. So from this, and it was already in the works in some places, several other HAs have gone ahead and initiated community gardens. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this, just want you to see that there's a lot of activity out there and there's room for more. So we're really excited about that. And next. the word community has come up and come up and come up. And I know Tony and Douglas were asking about it earlier on. Right now, the short answer is we do go anywhere. So there is a chance that you might have a visit that's quite a long drive. So right now, that's just the reality of the way the program is structured. We're trying to move to more of a community-based organization for several reasons. One is this program has gotten really big really fast. It's really popular, and it's too much for basically just two plus people to manage. And it's also better for the sustainability of the program and the connectivity of the program to have people who are community leaders in their own communities who are spreading the word and making connections. And eventually that will help with sort of organizing visits in communities, but right now that we're not there yet. So it is the whole county. So next slide. So this is just giving you an idea of some of the many activities that where we go and we do outreach. We connect to markets, to festivals. We have several collaborations with Mount Rainier Nature Center and other organizations like that. And our community-based HAs who are taking leadership roles are able to develop more relationships with active organizations in their areas and help us bring tables, bring information, etc. Next. We also have HAs who are experts in propagating seeds and growing plants from those seeds, and we are able to use those as educational tools and also to participate in giveaways and swaps. And that's been a really effective way to connect to a lot of new people. And we have Kaylin here tonight. There she is. We took this program and reworked it and established a advisor training and certification program on the University of Maryland campus in connection with Epsilon Eta. And to the buy-in piece, we also have direct connection, and Epsilon Eta now is directly connected to staff of the Arboretum at the University of Maryland. So they're working together and actually improving gardens on the campus. And talk about a nice big palette to work on. The more native plants we can get on that campus, the more we're doing faster. We're also in the beginning stages of reaching out to Prince George's Community College with something similar. Last but definitely not least, we took on, and Kathy did the lion's share of this work, actually pretty much all of it. What? And Delaney. And Delaney. The reworking of the Prince George's Audubon Society website, which was sort of had fallen off the radar. It's now quite beautiful, and hopefully you've all seen it, and that's where our Habitat Advisor section is. And we also have a fairly new Instagram account and really are eager to get everybody sending in all kinds of content that we can use for those. And I'm going to stop there and turn it over to Kathy, who's going to tell us about what's coming right up now.
Okay, so clearly this is, we're trying to invite you in ways other than visits, not overwhelm you, but to invite you in. And as Susanna said, well, I'm going to talk to you about 3 asks. The first one, kind of echoing what Susanna just said, that we would love you to take pictures in your garden, before and after pictures of the first thing that comes up in the spring, or your favorite ephemeral or whatever. And in the email that I'm going to send you tomorrow, I will include the email of Chris Schwartz, who is another volunteer who is taken charge of the Instagram account. And you can send those things directly to him. The second thing is that we already have a lot of outreach events on the calendar. You can see this goes through July, and I imagine there'll be some more things that get slipped in here. One of them is that we also have outreach at the Capitol Market, which is at Creative Suitland. Creative Suitland is obviously in Suitland, and it's kind of a sister arts organization, a sister to Joe's. And we have a really good connection there. That's where we met many of the master gardeners who are here tonight. These first 3 things coming up, we really need volunteers to help man tables and give out postcards and sign people up for visits and spread the word. I will give you in the email that I send you more information about the times and places, but we hope we can get some of you to come out for some of those things. And then the third thing is we've had some social gatherings every year, but we'd like to really make that a little bit more consistent and have a spring gathering and a fall gathering. We all, not all of us meet everyone on visits. It's kind of the luck of the draw, and it's really nice at least a couple of times a year to get people all together. So we're hoping that among you and the other Habitat advisors, there'll be some folks who would like to take that on, help organize that, because we have a really wonderful group of people. I think we've come to the conclusion that people who want to plant native are nice people. I don't know exactly how that works, but it's true. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And we are now to 8:31. You'll get an email as soon as I can possibly do it with the recording and with some other next steps, with an email, the links that you need to sign up for visits. I'm going to give you information about a waiver that we're going to ask you to fill out, and a couple of other business sorts of things like that as follow-up. And you should know that there are 19 visits scheduled for this early shadow visit sort of segment that we've set up for you. So there are 19 pairs of people waiting eagerly to have you shadow them. And we really hope, as Barry said, that will be a good addition to the program. So we said we would stop at 8:30. It's 8:32. So we're going to say good night, but we are here if you want to stay and ask other questions, talk more about your own garden. So
good night.